we received 17 complaints about officer conduct. That's not too dissimilar for any of the contracts that I run. I run the BIFA contracts, we get the same issues around BIFA drivers, etc. What I would say is, what we've learned from Kingdom is they are very, very robust at dealing with members of staff who do not follow procedure because of the kind of legal requirements associated with all of this. Going out of procedure isn't tolerated, whether that's through retraining or whether it's through dismissal. In serious cases, they are very robust at dealing with, certain instances in some of the scenarios we've heard tonight. Third one, following. They're not allowed to follow people, they are allowed to observe offences, so there shouldn't be any instances of people being followed home. And again, that will be something that the client team will pick up as part of the complaints process and deal with. And if it did turn out that a Kingdom officer had knowingly followed somebody, they will be dealt with through disciplinary procedures, which we have sight of and they are required to perform to, because again, that will be submitted as part of their tender. And the last one, their uniform and identity. They are required to wear a uniform and they are required to visibly have their identification on display. So that is picked up through their own competency framework, where their team leaders and managers go on site with officers and are required to check on these things.
Thank you. Tony? So the question on officers' DBS check.
Yes, Councillor Cottier, all officers have enhanced DBS checks.
Steve?
Yeah, it's probably been answered, but specifically, are you aware that employees who behave for Kingdom in an unreasonable manner have been disciplined to the point of being sacked?
Thanks, Councillor Foulkes. Through you, Chair. I'm aware of employees that have been with Kingdom since the start of the original contract in 2015 and still have not had a disciplinary matter against them. Likewise, I'm aware of people who've been there less than a week because they've done something really out of tune or completely unacceptable, and they've dismissed them pretty much instantly. So yes, every scenario has been covered in terms of the last couple of years.
Gerry?
Thank you very much, Tony. Andy, you've been here for over 2 hours now, listening to all this, and nearly all of it has been criticism of Kingdom. In fact, I haven't heard anybody say a good word about them at all, but that's it. Andy, from what you've now heard tonight and what you know already, would you be willing to recommend to the Cabinet and to your own leaders that we try to get rid of Kingdom and the easiest, in the nicest possible way, and bring it in-house, or look for an alternative supplier?
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. I think Kingdom have done an excellent job in the last 2 years in terms of helping us to achieve, tackling poor behaviour. And that's what this is about. This is about challenging behaviours. The fact that we have issued over 25,000 tickets in 2.5 years suggests that there is a problem out there, and you as elected members will know from feedback from your own constituents that probably 98% of this litter is dropped intentionally or does come from cars, and it's that behaviour we're trying to challenge. And for me, it's not a question of whether it's in-house or whether it's done by a service provider. Kingdom have demonstrated that they have got the necessary skills. They work in over 45 local authorities now. They've won 10 contracts in the last 12 months, 11 contracts in the last 12 months. Relative to the body of work they do, the amount of complaints we get is small. And I know we've heard from some people tonight, but you'd have to believe when I say complaints about their officers is low. On that basis, I would recommend that in the interests of changing behaviours and complementing what we do through education, through our campaigns, and being able to sustain that body of work, and hopefully, as Councillor Patrick alluded to, see an overall reduction in the amount of litter, dog fouling, fly tipping we see on streets, and an improvement in local environmental quality, I will suggest that there is at least a further 3 years of hard work needed to carry on changing that behaviour.
So, very quick, so you don't think it'd be even better if we brought it in-house?
At this point in time, we don't have the infrastructure or will be able to invest in the infrastructure to manage the level of certainly information that comes the way a third-party service provider does. They're able to spread their costs across multiple contracts for the systems they use, so we can profile any, we can tell you where every single fixed penalty notice has been issued. They can track the routes of their officers, across, so we can identify the hotspots, etc. We wouldn't have the capability to do that without a significant level of investment.
Allan?
Well, actually, I was really going to raise much the same point as Councillor Ellis. The fact is, isn't it, that we're really in a monopoly situation with the Kingdom. The other bidder was nothing like as good. They do seem to have a monopoly on most of the local authorities around here, and it does seem to me that Kingdom are there to provide profits for themselves, and to follow up to Councillor Ellis's point, is this not something we really ought to be bringing back in-house, if not immediately, because we can't afford the structures at the moment, but a longer term aim, we ought to be looking after this service ourselves.
Thanks, Councillor Brame. Through you, Chair. The contract is for 3 years with a 3-year option to extend. So if after the 3 years we took a view that this may be something we would then be prepared to do in-house, that will be a decision we make at the time. At this point in time, we have been happy with the performance of the existing contract.
Final question, Councillor Kenny. Sorry, penultimate question.
Thank you, Chair. Mr McCartan, I think you said that the new contracts have actually installed improvements. So are you saying that some of the previous problems that we've encountered have been ironed out and that the new contracts would hopefully lead overall to a better service all around?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. I'm saying that the specification that was drawn up for the new contract was excuse me, a lot more robust than the one that was for the old contract. So all those things that we've learned about behaviour, about what matters to local people in terms of, littering cars, as we've heard, is something that's been built in. We've taken, obviously, some knowledge from what has happened in the last 2 years, where other people have employed, environmental enforcement contractors and built that in. So the actual model that we're now working to is a lot more robust, because as I said earlier, Councillor Kenny, the original contract started off as a trial in many ways, just to see whether, or just to test what the actual position was in terms of littering on the streets, and I think we've established that there is a significant problem.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
This will probably be a very naive question, and so if you laugh, I can understand. Where there's a case which will be disputed about a bit of what a dog leaves behind, because we heard of a case where one of our witnesses said that it couldn't have been her dog because it was cold. Would there be any mileage in suggesting that a DNA test should be taken of the offensive material?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jones. I am aware that some local authorities, not necessarily in the UK, have gone down that route, but it's nothing we've considered at this point in time. But maybe it's something we look at.
In that case, if I may say so, I would suggest that it perhaps ought to be considered. And I say that as a dog walker.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Can I ask Councillor Gilchrist back again, please? If you could summarise the situation for us, please, as you say.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I want to do is actually pay tribute and thank those members of the public who took great personal steps in coming here today, who had to effectively summarise, jot down and think through what had happened to them over a period of time, and during that time faced great distress. So I think regardless of party, the committee will want to thank them for coming along and getting with us. I want to turn for a few things. I listened very carefully to Mr McCartney and therefore respect his experience. A lot has been made about litter thrown from vehicles. That actually is down to new powers in more recent legislation. So it's not surprising that we have to update our contract. Secondly, I will go back to the issue of how we monitor performance. Section 124 of the guidance issued a few weeks ago, enforcement authorities should judge the performance of contractors and staff according to how far desired objectives have been achieved. Outcome indicators might include compliance statistics, the number of appeals, and the localised impact that enforcement appears to have had on relevant offending and the accumulating rate of litter. So one plea is that we actually study what is happening on the ground, whether the activity is making a difference. Various members spoke of balance and also of education. Councillor Patrick, I believe, at other meetings and in this meeting, has generally taken the view that, well, actually, tell me and tell the officers and we will take it on board and we will try and improve things. We're very grateful for the interest the new cabinet member is taking in the process. The process we've heard today has exposed some of the difficulties, differences and imperfections in training, some of the lack of showing clear identity in terms of badges or wearing jumpers that aren't clear. But also shown that members have begun to appreciate the need for, and certainly do appreciate for a more robust approach in dealing with our litter problems, but we need to balance that with a more robust approach to ensure that the contractor is doing what the contractor is being asked to do. We haven't got a fundamental answer about the issues of the profit share or the costings and what goes to the council and what goes to Kingdom. I hope that that will be published, because the documentation from the government makes it clear that we should expect companies that the contractor should meet the same standards as would be expected of the authority itself. So if we as a council prepare to be open, we should expect the contractor to be open. So I think my conclusions from today are that we should publish the powers the contractor is working under. We should publish the contract that the contractor is working under. We should be open about our dealings with the contractor, and that there should be a record of the weekly and monthly meetings available for members to inspect. And that we should underline in our dealings with the public the things the contractor cannot and should not do. I'm grateful for comments that have been made about not allowing staff that are not being permitted to follow members of the public. I am aware that some councils are looking at the issue of in-house, and I have heard today comments about costings and various difficulties. But I want to go back to where we started, and that the issue is the public interest, and the issue is proportionate use of powers. I go back also to the issue of accidental dropping of litter that was mentioned in the case of the lady here who was in the car park in Birkenhead. The government guidance says, section 48, that not to issue a fixed penalty notice when something falls from someone's pocket. In order to maintain public trust in the legitimacy of enforcement action against littering, fixed penalties for littering should only be issued where there is evidence of intent to drop litter. I know these things are going to be subject to future interpretation, but if the system is to work and the public can have confidence in it, then that plea for openness is what I leave with you today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilchrist. Thank you. Can I now invite Councillor Matthew Patrick, please? You're up to 5 minutes, Councillor.
I won't need 5 minutes, Jack. Like I said, thank you, Chair. So I want to sort of echo the point that Phil made, is that it must be difficult, and I want to thank the residents that have come forward to raise their concerns and issues and their experiences, which I know can't have been a pleasant experience. So I'd like to thank them for doing that, and to say sorry that they've had to really have a distressful situation, which I'm hoping we can make sure it doesn't happen again. I hope those processes can be checked, and I hope those complaints will checked rigorously. I've heard a number of things mentioned about the need for education. I think both Phil and one of our residents also, I think it was Sarah, mentioned that was necessary. And I said that from the start. I always think that's important, but I never think that's solely the thing. People have said about a variety of issues. If only people realise about the damage that litter dropping does. People know about the damage that doing so many things does, and I don't think that always knowing is the answer. I think sometimes you need that enforcement, and I think having an enforcement contract then is part of that. I think it was also mentioned about this happening in areas where there's poverty, and I represent Woodchurch, which is one of the poorest areas in the borough, and I don't think it's appropriate that people on the Woodchurch would have to live by people who just throw their litter on the floor but don't get fined because they're in an area of greater poverty. In fact, that's sometimes the most vociferous complaints we get from people that live on the Woodchurch in my ward. And actually, I think to therefore say we wouldn't pursue that, I think wouldn't be sensible or fair, and I think it's an important part of doing this. I think we need to make sure as much as we can that there is that we're doing this based on complete facts and we're fully aware of the situation. For that reason, I'm happy with Councillor Gilchrist. It's the first I've ever heard of a request for the contract to be published. As I've always said, come to me. We don't need to hold public meetings to ask for basic things. So I would ask that, provided commercially confidential and sensitive information is taken out of that, I will ask officers to go and publish the details that have been requested. And I think I'll always be reasonable and fair about those things. And then again, I think it was said that the people that work at Kingdom have to issue extra fines if they want a reasonable pay. These people are paid the living wage on a full-time contract, so we need to be aware of the reality of that situation. I think it's important to note that. I do stand by the decision to award the contract to Kingdom. I think it is a journey of behaviour change, and I think that. Notwithstanding, as Andy said, we've got Biffa that collects how many thousand bins each and every day, and it's a low level of complaints that we have here and there. Of course there are going to be times where mistakes are made or people are transgressing, and I'm pleased that there are disciplinary processes, and I'm pleased that it's already clear action is taken in those circumstances, and that needs to remain the case. But I think, and Councillor Foulkes kind of touched upon this, to issue over 25,000 enforcement notices, I mean, the figures are eye-watering, and I don't think you even need to see the 25,000. I think you need to walk down the streets and see people who don't care and do throw things on the floor or are on the street, or some people that do walk away, again, or kick a bit of sand over the poo on the beach. There aren't too many instances of that, and I'm not willing to let up. If we're going to have a zero-tolerance approach, we need to do that. We need to have fair and robust measures, and I think we've been reminded of those, and it's completely appropriate. We need to make sure that we continue, and I mentioned before, other councils don't have that stopgap with the council to complain. We need to make sure that we continue doing that, because I think it's an important part of this. But I think it would be... Two questions were asked of Councillor Gilchrist at the very start, I think, about what did he hope to achieve from the call-in, what did he want in terms of a change of contract or so. I didn't particularly get a clear answer from the back. I didn't completely understand what he wanted. But all I know is to reject the contract, I think, would be a terrible message to send out to people. We cannot have it acceptable that littering on our streets, on our beaches, in our parks, or any part of the Wirral is acceptable. And to have a zero-tolerance approach, I think Kingdom are a great asset to Wirral Council, and that contract is an important one. It's not to say we can't be critical, it's not to say that we shouldn't be robust, it's not to say that we shouldn't have those meetings on a weekly basis, sometimes daily, but I think it's a very important contract that the council has, and I hope that the committee can recognise that.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Members, comments, observations? Christina, Steve, Adam. Yes, Christina, sorry. Yeah.
I've heard a lot today, and I thank everybody who's given us information, because I think we all know a little bit more than we did before about this contract. And I think there are certain things that we as a Scrutiny Committee should be asking for, like when we have those worse betters, do we get the number of complaints that have been and appeals against judgments? And because I think that would be very useful for us to have. And I think that it would also be helpful for us as a Scrutiny Committee to have examples of appeals. Because if nothing else, Kingham will then know we are looking at it. And I think that is very important, because human nature is a strange thing, isn't it? And people with definite jumpers on might feel differently with definite jumper, I don't know. I'm also concerned, we might say that, okay, they didn't get the fine, everything's hunky-dory, but there is a cost, isn't there? There's an emotional cost. In the case of the poor lady who had to go on to antidepressants, there's a cost to us all in the health service. And there's a cost to her, because it's not going to improve her quality of life. And I think the lady who got the little tiny bit of paper, who says now she doesn't like shopping in Birkenhead, well, that's a cost to us all, isn't it? Because we've lost Marks and Spencer's, we're about to lose BT's. If people don't want to shop in Birkenhead, and we're spending a lot of money to try and get people to shop in Birkenhead, we've got a problem. My concern is that I think we need to have more things in place that let us know what Kingham's doing. I'd like to know how many people ask to see the footage and are shown it, how many people don't get to see it, and I think if Kingham knew that we were asking those sort of questions, they would automatically show it. And I'd like to know how people know that they can ask for the footage, because I wouldn't. So there's a lot of questions I've got to ask, but I do feel in terms of how the contract was won, I can't see that there's a problem with that. I mean, yeah, there's only 2 companies, well, 3 companies down to 2 in it, and they tell us that it's a new market, and Kingham at the moment are the people who've seen that niche in the market. But that will change, and 3 years would give us a chance for other companies to come on board, so we have more choices, and also for us to look as a council whether we could do it in-house. So all sorts of questions here, and I now want to hear what other people think.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Christina. For some bizarre reason, the figure 17 stuck in my mind with regard to the figure that you were asking about before, so 17 stuck in my mind. Steve?
Yeah, okay. The calling is about whether the contract should be awarded or not, and was awarded fairly. There was clearly competition for the contract, and by any measure, Kingdom, given their established place in the market and their track record, clearly have won the contract. So there's no doubt in my mind that the right company have got it. Bringing in-house was mentioned. Actually, you can't have people want their cake and eat it. The council was criticised repeatedly, and as Tony says, the Labour administration repeatedly criticising Europe Environment Cabinet member, the lack of prosecutions. We were criticised for lack of prosecutions on all the fronts, on litter, on everything that was going on. And the step change came when we actually decided that we weren't very good at doing that type of work. Because it was in-house, there was lots more pressures. So we actually went for a step change. And it has been a step change. I'm sorry, people don't want to ever give the council any comments, but the streets are cleaner, the ponds are cleaner, they are better. I noticed I go out along, and you know, I was only on the prom the other day, and it's significantly better than maybe 2-3 years ago. So I do believe behavioural change is on the way, and that's the only way we're going to actually make the streets cleaner in every way, shape or form. I absolutely go livid when we somehow think that it is okay to throw a cigarette butt on the floor. You're giving that impression to the public that that's okay. Well, I'll remind you, average smoker, 20 fags a day, 140 a week, over 7,000 a year. That's one individual. And we have 15 to 20% smokers of our adults are smokers. Imagine if I threw 20 cigarettes on the floor here, you'd be aghast. 140, you'd be disgusted. 7,000, you'd want to run 100 miles. I drove to the town hall tonight, and purposely, as I do whenever I go, I look. I've been a former environmental chair, you learn how to measure cleanliness. The patches where I noticed we weren't clean were where people gather. So imagine I come from Unilever down the A41 that way. First one was the courthouse, where people had gathered. I just literally scanned cigarette butts all over the floor. The next stop was the pub further along, cigarette butts out on our pavement. And then when I got to here outside the town hall, and I hope our lads have cleaned it up, if it still hasn't been cleaned up, have a look how many cigarette butts have been dumped outside, along with the confetti. Confetti I might live with, but I can't live with 20 cigarette butts. They are people who think it's okay to inhale a cigarette and then dump it on the floor. Do you know what the toxins are within the cigarette butts? Where does it go when it rains? Where do those toxins end up when it rains? Every single drop of those toxins go into the waterways, poison the fish, and we've had so many campaigns about protecting the oceans, protecting the waterways. Wake up and smell the coffee, please. Cigarette dumping is not a nice thing to encourage, and it is not nice. I agree, high profile, lots of litter. I actually think we're making it. People seen last night on the news, New Brighton. They will see the old photos of New Brighton. One thing you can notice is the litter on the floor. It really is scandalous. It's better now, not perfect, but better. So, if less people actually believe there is a chance of being caught and being prosecuted for doing this, then why would they want to change behaviour? If they're that sort of person anyway, why would they? And I think this type of meeting tonight raises the profile that we have said quite clearly as a board. You stand a chance of being prosecuted if you deliberately litter. I can't excuse anyone being wrongly accused. I've been wrongly accused a number of times in my life. It's bloody awful. And I tell you, it's awful. So these people will never want kingdom or believe in kingdom as long as they live. And their stories is actually putting other people off kingdom. So it's up to kingdom and us to get it right. So my view is that we are making a step change. Final point is the contract has been awarded correctly. I believe that, and I believe entirely with Christina Muspratt, that we should, and we did last year, we should be part of that monitoring process and how the contracts go and priorities. And I'll tell you my tale of how I use kingdom as a ward councillor. I had a complaint about excessive dog found in an area of my ward. Okay, so the first thing my priority was to get in touch with cleansing and get it clean. But at the same time, I wrote to the residents and a number of residents around that area and said, I am also calling on Kingdom to come and do enforcement. And if you get caught, hard luck. If you let your dog foul, because I've had a number of complaints that it's got to a point that people cannot live with. Okay? I haven't report back whether anyone was prosecuted. The mere threat of the chance of those people being caught made a change in it. So enforcement has got to be there. Nobody likes getting fined. Nobody likes traffic wardens. Nobody likes litter wardens. They have a job of work to do. And I hope these tales of woe tonight Don't turn it into sort of, these people are all bullies and that, because clearly there are professional officers within Kingdom, there are highly professional officers within this council, there are highly professional cabinet members and people on this committee with a passion to make this thing work. So I'm saying that this is a negative call-in. It could have been dealt with through scrutiny another day, but I think it's also important that we all send a message out. We will not tolerate people deliberately littering our streets, dog found on our streets and throwing cigarette butts on our streets. And the one pet hate, and I've got to get out of the system, people who say they're responsible dog owners, who put the dog crap in a little black bag and then lob it in a bush or hang it on a tree. Surely Kingdom can get a grip of that, because that is absolutely disgusting.
Thanks very much for that, Sir Adam.
Thanks, Chair. Just following up from what Steve said, I mean, it's clear that what we're trying to achieve is to improve the issue of litter and dog fouling across Wirral. It was highlighted when we spoke to residents as one of their key issues that needs tackling. So education alone is not going to be enough. We do need some form of enforcement. And as Christina's highlighted, there were only 3 companies who came forward in the first place. And of those, we got down to 2 and then finally 1. So we do need to appoint a contractor. There's no evidence that the way that the process was carried out was anything untoward or any reason why the contract shouldn't be awarded. So I think that side of everything is clear. We need an enforcement team. We can't do it ourselves. We need to have a private contractor. We've got a contractor who's followed properly, so there's no issue with that. I think what the people who come and give an evidence today highlights is that we as a council, we as a committee, need to have a look at some of the minority of cases and see how that can be improved by how the council actually manage the contract themselves. So residents need to be aware that there's a clear path that they can take, where they can speak to someone in the council, whether it's through their councillor or direct with council officers, at the point where they can make a complaint that they don't feel that they were treated fairly by Kingdom, and that there's the process that we then capture that, so that if we are dealing with the contract in future, we can have a clear picture of where it's gone wrong, why it's gone wrong, and what Kingdom have done about it to stop it happening again, like you would in any contract. And I think, as well, I was reassured that we do our own data sampling of the actual prosecutions, and the issues that are raised do seem to be the minority, although for the people who have experienced them, as Steve said, it is a very troubling time. It does have an emotional consequence as well as obviously financial consequences of having to go to court and to take it further. So I do appreciate that side of things. I think that's where we need to get a grip with that as a council, as councillors. I hope that this committee can do a piece of work to find out what we can do to improve residents' perception and make sure that no residents feel like they haven't got somewhere to go if they've got an issue with Kingdom. But I think ultimately tackling this problem is a key concern for residents across Wirral. It's not one part of Wirral, it's across Wirral, and it's the top 2, top 3. It's always in the top 3 issues of residents. So that's my view.
Okay, thanks for that, Alan. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Chair. I agree wholeheartedly that we do need a system in place that monitors this. We need the contract that will penalise people for dropping litter and dog fouling. 100% I support that. I'm just concerned with what Councillor Foulkes has just said, that this is a negative call-in. It's clear that there are lots and lots of concerns from residents regarding the contract with Kingdom. And it's up to us, it's only correct that we need to listen to those concerns, and we have listened to them, and hopefully something positive will come out of that. So I don't see it as negative call-in the least. Thank you.
Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The first thing I'd like to do is sincerely thank the witnesses who've come along today. Obviously, it wasn't easy for them to come along and tell their stories, and some of them did sound very sad. But it's not the purpose of the call-in today to make a judgment or a decision on individual cases, sad as some of them sounded. That is not the purpose of the whole call-in. Last Sunday afternoon, I went to pick a friend of mine up to come back to me flat to watch the men's tennis final and the World Cup final. On the way back, there was a gentleman in a car in front, threw out a lit cigarette out of the window. That type of thing drives me mad. We've got to deal with issues like that. We can't just ignore it and pretend it's not a real issue. Councillor Patrick earlier in answer to a question from yourself, did confirm that anybody who was not guilty in any way of any environmental crime has got nothing to lose, nothing to fear by the decision taken on the 18th of June this year. The fact that, I think the figure's been mentioned a couple of times now, the fact that we've got over 25,000 tickets issued in the last 2.5 years proves that there's a problem. And I'm sure I'm not the only councillor in the room who regularly gets complaints from residents about fly tipping, about littering, about dog fouling, etc. So I think we've all got a collective responsibility to do something about those issues. Last year, Chair, I went to visit my daughter and grandson in Sydney, Australia. I was there for just over 2 weeks. Throughout the whole time I was there, I never saw any dog fouling or any littering. And when I asked my daughter about that, she made it plain that it just wouldn't happen over there. The culture is such that people would not even dream of allowing their dog to foul and walk away. They wouldn't dream of littering in the streets. Sadly, we're not in that position in this country yet. I hope that in the not too distant future, that education will bring people to realise that it's not acceptable. But until we get to that day, we've got to have enforcement, whether we like it or not. People who are guilty, and it is a minority, do need to be punished if they're fouling, or allowing their dog to foul and they're littering, etc., and think it's okay. So we've got to do something about it. I love the Wirral, Chair, as long as, I'm sure as much as everybody else in this room, but I also hate environmental crime. We've got to do something about it, and I've got a motion to move, Chair. I don't know whether you want me to move it now, or whether you want to wait till the end of this discussion and move it then, but I've got a motion to move, which hopefully will bring us forward.
If you didn't mind, Councillor Kenny, I'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Because we've 1 or 2 more people who'd like to contribute. Councillor Brame, you have your hand in the air, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Like other councillors, I'd like to echo those our thanks to the witnesses who came forward today, because, as has been said, it's not an easy thing to do, and we do appreciate it. I think there's actually a considerable agreement around the room. None of us here wants to see litter, whether it's cigarette ends, whether it's dog bug, whether it's food trays, whatever it is, it's disfiguring our landscape, and we need to get rid of it, and that's no question about that. The issue about cigarettes that Councillor Foulkes is going on about, I'm quite happy to see as many thousands fined for that who can't dispose of them sensibly. The concern is that it does seem to be taking a disproportionate amount of the time of Kingdom to collect those fines, and they neglect some of the other things which we also get complaints about. I think we need to see a broader approach. There's obviously a lot of litter, and it needs to be tackled. It has to be said that I would not want to work for Kingdom, and I don't think any of us probably would relish doing that job. It's a thankless task when you're only working for the living wage, when you're perhaps going to face abuse and unpleasantness from members of the public that you're stopping. It's not an easy job to do. Nevertheless, I'm sure that we all feel a certain unease about some of the anecdotal evidence we've heard today about people who have had very unfortunate experiences at the hands of Kingdom. It does reflect badly on us as a council, because they are, at arm's length, operating as our representatives, and if they're getting it wrong, even if on a relatively small number of occasions, it's still not good enough. There was some, I think, assurance in what Andrew McCarthy was saying about the new contract, that it is more robust, glad to see it's going to be further widening of the hours, so make it easier to tackle people who are allowing their dogs to foul. And I think it's really important that we do have that ability for people to question FBNs when they are issued inappropriately. We don't know the scale of the problem, as Councillor Muspratt was saying. But I think we do need to get some figures on that, and to make sure that people who are making a nuisance themselves in Wirral are fined, but those innocent people who are caught up inadvertently are not. And I think we can all reach agreement on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. As Steve knows, when we first stint on the council, I'm not exactly backwards and coming forwards and making your political points go. But I will, you said no one ever says anything about myself at the council. Well, actually said something. You have recognised that there was something that the council were not good at and tried to do something about it. I think there's many other things that the council were not good at as well, by the way, that you could do something about, but that was something that you've accepted. So I will take that on board. I'll also accept and recognise that there is a place for us as the Scrutiny Committee to feed into this particular issue. But I'll still say again, it's still regular administration. You still have officers whose jobs are there to administer this particular contract. We've got basically the contracts manager and the here now. The issues that are being raised need to be nipped in the bud before we come to scrutiny and start talking about them. They need to be fed back to the service provider now and ensure that we actually get on top of them. And that comes back to, again, I don't think anyone was detracting from the seriousness of people flicking cigarettes everywhere, believe me, it winds me up. But the direction, set of priorities, as Adam said, there's different priorities in different areas that people see, and that's what we need to get over to the service provider. I think what we're talking about here, someone is going to provide, I said at the start of the first comments during the questions, someone's going to be providing the enforcement. We were not very good at doing it as a council. We have given it out to a third-party contractor. Whether they give it to another one or another one after that, there'll still be issues around them. There's always going to be complaints. But let's just actually feed back in what's happened, get it right, and other than that, get on with the job.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. Brian, you had...
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to move the following motion, which I've jotted down during the discussion this afternoon. Yeah. This Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, having listened carefully to the lead signatory, relevant Cabinet member, all witnesses and the views of members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, believes that the decision taken by the relevant Cabinet member in relation to the delivery of the environmental enforcement contract be upheld. So that's the motion, Chair, and with your permission I'd like to just say a few words in support of it.
Got a second for that, Brian, first before you speak in favour of it. Councillor Jones, thank you. Second. Carry on, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, I'm not going to repeat things that other people have already said, but I've moved the motion, and realistically, I'm asking myself, what is the alternative? I mean, we've had the call in this afternoon, and I think if I'm right in recalling, even the lead signatory, Councillor Gilchrist, in response to a question, said, well, perhaps we should just allow this contract for 12 months. So I don't think anybody is actually suggesting that we just rip up the contract and we do nothing, because everybody who's spoken agrees that there is a problem and that we need to address that problem. We can't pretend that there's no problem, or we can't pretend that we can do nothing about it. A number of people have said, well, there have been particular instances, and some of the witnesses have given their stories. So where there have been problems in implementation of the contract that we've got with Kingdom, let's look at those. Mr McCartan's already said that in some cases, individual officers have either been disciplined, or in some cases